Today, I want to combine the power of the powerful Lionsgate portal happening tomorrow and the important part that our hearts play in our lives. I've been wanting to bring forward a heart focused episode for a while now, and the opening of the skies and the Lionsgate portal are giving us a perfect opportunity to understand our hearts more deeply so that we can prepare ourselves for the transformation wanting to occur in our lives. I'll see you in the episode. Welcome back to Mystical Sisterhood. This is your host, Maureen Spielman. Thank you so much for joining me today on episode 85. I think it's going to be a good one as I combine Lionsgate wisdom with the wisdom of our heart. I first want to say that I just got back from a great trip in New York City where I was visiting a lot of family members, my daughter, who happens to be working there this summer, my niece, who owns a beautiful soup shop down in the Essex Market. If you're in Manhattan, check her out. Her name is Tiffany, and she owns Champs Elysees. I'll link that in the show notes today, as well as my sister-in-law and her beautiful family. It was a really beautiful time to be immersed in family and the energetics of New York City, which I always love. And I did notice that this time around, being in the city for about 3.5 days, that I felt possibly more depleted than usual. So this week, focusing on rest and resourcing a bit more than usual. And I hope that if you feel yourself being depleted by any part of your life, that you are able to recognize it and also take the time for that important restoration wanting to occur for yourself. So I wanted to combine, because today, if you're listening in real time, is August 7th, the power of tomorrow's Lionsgate 8/8 August 8th portal and the important role that our heart plays in the matters of your life and our lives. And I really had been wanting to bring a heart centered episode forward for a while now. So I'm taking this opportunity to marry the two topics together so we can understand both maybe a little bit better. And I'm by no means an expert. And if I plan well enough, maybe next year on 8/8, on August 8th, I will have an expert in astrology or someone who can really explain what's happening in the skies. Now, I'm going to just borrow a little bit from a website called sagegoddess.com. And on the website, she or they say that the Lionsgate opens every year around July 26th, activating a tremendous amount of star power energy. It reaches its peak on August 8th, 8/8. So that's why it's called the 8/8 Lionsgate portal, and stays open until about August 12th. So to me, that says like it's got a span of about 2 weeks. And right in that kind of like almost middle point, in a sense, this opening is happening. And so, from a sky perspective, astrological, this event is marked by the rising of Sirius, the brightest star in the sky. And so this means during that time that Sirius will be visible above the eastern horizon just before sunrise. So again, that is not mine. That is borrowed. I don't know about you, but I tend to be fascinated by certain topics and understand them lightly. And for my life, that is often perfect. If you're also like me, you can go down rabbit holes of perpetual learning, and sometimes you have to stop yourself. I think I become increasingly enamored by the heart and its overlooked meaning in my life. I'll speak from that point. So, currently, just to say with Lionsgate, I'm paying attention to the meaning of this day and where I'll be. I'll actually be out of town on that Thursday, but where I'll be and what I'll want to cultivate. And to me, I think receptivity, allowance, knowing that my heart is here to guide me, that I have been conditioned most of my life to think that it's my mind that guides me and makes decisions for me and helps me, quote unquote, figure things out. But in reality, my heart is balancing with my mind, but also looking for me to allow it to lead. And so I'm wondering if that resonates with you at all. And if you will join me in this journey today to learn really more almost like facts, but fascinating truths about our heart that we might not know. And then dive into ways we can connect with our heart so we can make the most of this Lionsgate portal this year. So I'm wondering for you, like, how often do you think about your heart as a powerful emotional and spiritual center? And so the old me probably kind of knew or knew the basics, but now I think with every day, I'm deepening into how powerful this is. And I always go back to Heather Hansen saying to me, in an early episode about really the magic of the universe is like, what if everything was sacred? So what if these Lionsgate numbers 88 are sacred? What if the number 8 is sacred? What if your heart is sacred? What if every experience you've had in your life is sacred? What new meaning would that take on in your life if we gave reverence and the just seeing and feeling the sacredness of everything? Our hearts physically give us life, and they hold so much more meaning and power for us. So perhaps you're curious where I'm going with this. And would you love to open your heart even more and be willing to open your heart even more? So I'm going to hold I'm on, for those listening on YouTube, I don't know if you can really see this, but this beautiful plaque came to me. It's hard to read, but it says lead with the heart. And it was given to me by a friend of a friend. My good friend Annie has a dear friend, Kitty, who lives in Australia. And Kitty, across the seas, across the oceans, must have sensed that hearts were on my mind. And isn't that incredible? That energy is energy, and across oceans, across miles, that our heart can sense what another one needs or is tuning or tapping into. I always love that theme of if we're leading with heart resonance, we're going to tap into a lot of knowing that we bypassed when we only used our mind. So I'm going to go back in time because I actually wrote the heart part of this episode mostly, I would say, about 6 weeks ago. And on this particular morning, the heart was coming up for me. I woke up and I went downstairs. My bed did not seem to want to hold me anymore. It was very early. And so I laid on the couch, which I never really do, and I looked over and I have this white plaque with a beautiful gray painted heart on it. And I was looking straight at it. It was almost like the universe set me up like, okay, we're going to lay you here and then you're going to look directly at that. And I think that that sign is what I had been looking for. And here it was right before my eyes. And as you know, if you've been with me long enough, and I think I'm feeling into this and feeling and trusting and knowing more and more as I come from my heart space that the just right topics will come to me if I allow them to flow through my heart. And so I had been tossing around topics to speak on. And Brenda Reese had interviewed me for her podcast. She was on my podcast a while back on forgiveness, and she's a forgiveness coach and expert. Beautiful. And I can link her. But she said, Maureen, she's really good at producing solo episodes. And she said her sweet spot is not necessarily interviewing people. And I'm the opposite. But I think I've over identified with it, interviewing people as my sweet spot, which I think it is. But then what do you have to say? And she said, I want to hear more from you. So Brenda, if you listen, I want you to know that I took that to heart. I really did. And it became crystal clear on this morning that you're meant to speak on the heart. And, so it waited 5 or 6 weeks to come. And then I realized on that morning, so I said, okay, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to write about the heart, and I'm going to gather resources and my own experiences. And I realized that I actually started the heart episode around Valentine's Day because I thought, oh, this is when we're speak of the heart. But no, we're not only meant to speak on matters of the heart on February 14th. We're actually meant to speak about them every single day. The great thing was I had, an outline which I could work with, and I did. And so some questions I want to lead with are, when you think about your heart, what comes to mind? Is there a specific color? Is there a size? Is there a feeling? Do you envision the physical side of it with the pumping mechanism of the heart through the ventricles and the aorta? Or does a different visual come to mind? Is it softer? Do you have a piece of art? Is it a feeling? Can you describe it? What does it look like and feel like? I'm so curious about what comes up for you. Do you feel a full sensation or a closed off sensation? And I think that getting in touch with what it really feels like to breathe into your heart center can be very powerful. My teacher, Susie Lula, always uses a cue to put your hand on your heart when you're setting intentions or when you're really tapping into your inner worlds. And she'll always say to physicalize, to actually place the hand on the heart, to make that connection to your heart space. And I love that. So I think I've had a fascination with the heart personally for a while. And it's probably born of my experience with me and learning more about why we open our hearts, why, AKA, why I open my heart, why you close your heart, why I close my heart, and what's so mighty and powerful about them. And that, yeah, if we open up our body, we can see our hearts. But when we look in the mirror, the heart is not as accessible to us by sight, but it is by our senses of touching, it is by feeling, it is by knowing. And so it's just fascinating. And so I was going to say about that, that to me, then the heart becomes magical and the heart becomes mystical. And in mystical sisterhood, it's the exploration of the unknown that is so intriguing and so juicy and so ripe with possibilities that you've got me right there. I need nothing else. My personal intention and overarching theme in my life is to live and learn what it is to live and love with an open heart. It has been for a while to come to my life experiences with an openness. And I'm wondering, do you hold an overarching intention for your life? Is there something that you keep coming back to that you know to be your truth or a place that you're seeking to unravel? I'm wondering what's coming up for you. And I can think personally about my heart opening for certain people in my life and my heart closing for certain people in my life. And I'm wondering, does that resonate with you? Today, we'll really only scratch the surface of the complexity and enormity of our hearts. But let's talk about what makes our heart so powerful, all the ways culture speaks about the heart, and where the magic and mystery of the heart lie, and a few heart centered practices to finish. So, I wanted to start with the power of our heart. They are beautiful beyond our wildest dreams. We all know that our heart is vital to our lives, our livelihood, and our blood flow and oxygenation pulse through our bodies without us even asking it to do so. And how magical is that? Let's start with gratitude and appreciation for our hearts beating. Anyone that's had a loved one or you yourself have had heart challenges or you've lost a loved one, then it's going to be especially true for you that the appreciation of a beating heart, it's just part of our lives. I mean, I give such gratitude for it. I wanted to pull up, I thought it was fascinating, and I want to know what comes to your mind. Heart references in our culture. So I believe that hearts are also the concepts and become almost like the tools of the poets and the writers in the world. And maybe for you, you're a poet and a writer, but remembering phrases throughout my life, I came up with phrases like, pour your heart out, my heart skips a beat, I've had a change of heart, he's got a heart of gold, my mom is close to my heart, cross my heart, follow your heart, faint of heart, in a heartbeat, home is where the heart is. And those are probably just scratching the surface of all the ways we refer to the heart in our culture. So think about that. How many times you reference your heart as this sacred place within you, having more meaning than possibly any other organ in our body we refer to. I mean, I'm just blown away by that. I don't know if I'm blowing this out of proportion, but I do think it's quite incredible that the hearts are this universal theme. And so last weekend, when I was in New York City, I gave myself an opportunity to look for references to the heart and love throughout the city. And I took a picture when I saw it. And let me tell you, references to hearts and love in our culture are enormous. And I took pictures of hearts on sidewalks. I saw one through an office building. I looked through and I saw a heart, like those neon ones with a saying. I took a picture on billboards, in pamphlets, and so I think it's just sort of incredible. I hope this is landing that we use this symbol all the time, and yet it's not completely understood. But we must have a knowing that this organ, this what we call an organ, the energy center holds so much more meaning. So, just a few things about what's so magical apart from the physical magic and why is it so mighty. So, research shows that the heart has an energetic field and an electromagnetic field 100 times greater than our actual brain. Dr. Ricky Jane Addams, who was a guest on episode 59 called Tapping into Intuition, says in her book, Superconscious Intuition, our field, our energetic field, is influencing the field of the universe and the field of the person next to us. And she goes on to say, our heart is the communication portal to the quantum field because it generates the largest electromagnetic field of any part of the human body, thereby connecting us to the quantum field. It's a whole nother episode of how we are connected to source energy within the quantum field. But I'll leave it at that. And thank you, Dr. Adams, for highlighting this in Superconscious Intuition, because I know a lot of her work, your work, is embedded in the work of the Heart Math Institute, which I'll refer to in a bit too. So this reminded me that years ago, and I'm not going to describe this I'm not going to describe this perfectly, but it was put into practice a few years ago. I was in Sedona, Arizona. I think it was 3 years ago for a spring vacation. Yeah, about 2.5 years ago. And we went to this beautiful park called Peace Park. If you've been to it, you know that it's stunning and an energy vortex. So it was the first time that I had seen, I believe it's a Buddhist temple, and I may say this wrong, but it's either called a stupa. I'm going to call it a stupa. And it was in the center of the Peace Park, and you could circle it, setting your intentionality. And in that space, in that time, I really felt like I was mourning my father even before he had passed, which was, I would say, roughly about 9 months before he passed. So talk about that like precognition and that knowing. Do you think that came from my mind? I don't think so. I think it came from my heart. But so we had a guide. We must have been on some sort of tour, and we had a guide, and he said, you be my volunteer. So I stepped up, and he conducted this experiment, and it was actually over, it was meant to be over like an energy vortex of a riverbed underneath the water. But essentially what he did, he had like almost like a thicker piece of wire. I'm thinking of like a hanger, like the kind of wire that's on a hanger. And he came towards me with it slowly. And he was able to tap in with the wire to my energetic field and stopped, I'm going to guess at this point, probably like 1.5 to 2 feet outside of my body. So, perhaps I'm guessing that's where my aura, like my energy field, was ending at that time. But then the experiment was, okay, Maureen, I want you to stand there, go into your heart space and think about someone you love and really tap into that and emanate the energy, the vibration of love coming out of your heart. And so then he walked towards me, and I was thinking of my mom who had passed years before, and I was garnering up all the love for my mother in my heart that I had had and pushing it out into the energetic field. And wouldn't you know it, it was astonishing. He was walking towards me, and I would say that he ended up stopping, let's say, 4 to 5 feet out from my body. And so I think that that kind of ties in to Dr. Adams, the research on the electromagnetic field of our hearts. Okay, magic, mystical, Freaking amazing. Okay, so let's talk about your heart in the center of your chakra system. You've got three chakras above, three chakras below, gorgeous. And your heart is at the center. So it's your energy center. And it's associated also with emotional expression, including the capacity to feel fully, express, resolve anger, hostility, grief, joy, love, forgiveness. And it has the capacity to also be involved in like the reciprocal nature of the give and take, the flow, nurturing ourselves versus the other, or I should just say nurturing ourselves, and really this portal to connecting to ourselves intimately. Powerful, right? So that's all I'll say about the heart as chakra, but that can be a foundational point as we just continue this conversation. So I wanted to bring in a little bit of knowledge from Michael Singer's chapter in The Untethered Soul. So this chapter in particular is called The Secrets of the Spiritual Heart. And if you haven't read The Untethered Soul, it's a fascinating book. And it's one, this is what I think about these like seminal texts and these really beautiful wisdom books is that we go back to them time and time again. And sometimes I'm like, do I have amnesia? Did I ever even read this? But I know in my heart that I read it before and it impacted and informed my life in some way at that time. And then when I read it, I'm in a higher consciousness, hopefully, and I read it in a new way. So it's almost as if I haven't read it before. However, let's go back and I'm going to draw from this chapter and give all the credit to Michael Singer. We know going on in the heart is that it's one of our energy centers, like I'm saying, probably the most talked about chakra. When we feel love in our hearts, when our hearts feel full, that is the energy being drawn into the chakra. The chakras are meant to flow in and out with energy. Physically, the heart manages the energy flow by opening and closing rhythmically in our lives. And I love personally to think about the natural beat and opening and closing of our hearts as representative of the flow of life, of the flow of what it's supposed to feel like in our relationships to ourselves, to others, with the universe. Singer writes, what it means to live life is to experience the moment that is passing through you and then experiencing the next moment and the next. So I love that so much. So what I take that to mean is we're not meant to stop the emotions flowing through. Let's just bring it to the present moment. We're meant to live in the present moment, to have our experiences and let it flow. So here we are walking along and life is flowing until something stops us. Let's say something bothersome comes to you and you stop and experience it, and it's meant to flow through you. A block in your consciousness rises up and it's meant to be released. This is a whole other episode, but my point here is the flow. And when the flow is halted, our minds try to figure out what happened. So I guess the suggestion would be to let the feel the emotion and let it flow and release it. That's the interesting part. When the mind cannot make sense of the experience we have had, the intelligence of your body tries to release it through the heart. If it is then blocked in the heart, in yogic tradition, it's called a samskara, or an energy imprint or impression from your past. All the samskaras collected over your life are stored in your heart. So again, this is from most of that is from Michael Singer's The Untethered Soul. And the chapter on the heart is just beautiful. So when we do the healing work of our lives, like so many episodes have looked at, and which so many of us are reaching for and ready for, we're able to release the imprints and experience more of the heart opening. I mentioned the Heart Math Institute. It's a fabulous resource and research center on all things heart, physical, emotional, spiritual. And their information states that there can be a lack of balance between our systems, including mind, emotions, and heart. So, if anything, I take forward aiming for a coherence of my mind and my heart in my daily life. Sometimes I think of that the mind is the more masculine and the heart is such a feminine center, but the balance of the two, I think, is the way that we're meant to live. Whole nother episode. And it's really what I'm learning. And I know in the now that it's really important to be in our heart space, to be open to what the heart's intelligence and what it's here to communicate with us, to lean into the felt resonance, the gut feelings, our intuition, all of this unseen mystical knowledge speaking to us all the time. And can we heed the call to listen to the magnificence of our heart and allow it to inform how we live our lives? And so, some thoughts, lastly, on working with your heart. First of all, placing your attention on your heart, and you can take a moment to do this now if you're not driving. Imagine your breath, the breath of life, your prana. Imagine your breath moving in and out of the heart area, breathing slower and deeper than usual, and just drawing in the intention of kindness or caring or what it feels like to be with your puppy or your granddaughter or anyone in your family that you love to be with, and really feel that sense of fullness in your heart and be with it and focus on the ease or the peace and just how joyous that can feel by setting intentions to live a more heart-centered life can be very powerful. Know that you can surround yourself with hearts. A dear friend, Laura, collects hearts in the form of rocks. And the universe is so intelligent, it forms hearts in the form of rocks. I mean, that's kind of amazing, isn't it? So surround yourself with the visuals, draw, paint, do anything you can to express that connection to your heart and that willingness and that overarching desire to go into your heart space, to feel into your heart space fully. And I think that when you do this, you're going to get to know your heart resonance, your heartbeat, and you're going to feel its expansion. Watch when your heart closes. Step away from what you're experiencing at that time. Again, maybe place your hand on your heart. Become curious as to why that energy imprint is coming up for you, that samskara. What is happening that allows you to close? Does the situation trigger you or remind you something from your childhood? And through coming back to a memory with compassion, understanding, and curiosity, the heart will release that imprint or that impression of the past, freeing that energy to move throughout your body. I hope this was of some benefit and joy to you as we delved into the magic and mystery of the Lionsgate portal, as well as the magic and mystery of your heart. I wanted to end with special quotes about the heart, including the longest journey is from the head to your heart, and that is credited to the Sioux Native Americans. Another one is your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. I don't have a credit for that one. And the third one I collected was, and now here is my secret, a very simple secret. It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye. And that's from The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, bringing back my French from long ago. So let's leave with the idea that the heart and its intuition and its intelligence is so much more important, divine, complex, and beautiful than any of us were ever led to believe. I hope this touched some place in you. And as it's been said, this episode is near and dear to my heart, and it goes from my heart to yours. And I hope you feel that. And couple that with a new knowing of your heart and the Lionsgate portal tomorrow, or whenever you happen to listen, know that your heart is meant to be open and flow freely. If you have any desire or wish to deepen the conversation and your own connection to your heart, it's part of the work that I do. I think it's why I wrote the episode for today. And I love doing this through my one on one work, through meditation, and through the mystical sisterhood. I'd love to hear more from you about this episode, what is coming to your heart, what is coming from your heart, what you feel emerging in this really prosperous and abundant time. Remember, you need nothing outside of you to really rediscover, remember the brilliance and the beauty within you. I'd love to hear from you in my inbox. I'm at hello@maureenspielman.com And I'm on Instagram at Maureen Spielman. Thank you a million times over from my heart for being here today. And let's just do this work together. I think that that is the invitation. All right. I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to this episode of Mystical Sisterhood. To learn more about my one-on-one coaching programs or join the Mystical Sisterhood membership, visit MaureenSpielman.com or MysticalSisterhood.com. Thanks so much. I'll see you in the next episode.